I'm happy to introduce another segment of Latte with LeeAnn, and today I've got the partner of a law firm, and her name is Ariana Burris, and she went to the same university that my daughter did and where I was on the board at Chapman, right?
Yeah.
And I have the Chapman Amphitheater.
Oh,
Did
yes.
you ever see that?
Of course.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
Of course.
Very cool. So I thought it was really important to talk about probate. And as you know, not only am I a probate specialist, I have that designation, but several of my team as well have that. And that's the reason we kind of started talking.
Yep.
And there's a lot of things about probate people are kind of a mystery to people. So I thought it would be good to bring on the expert in probate and you can discuss some of the things that puzzle people.
Sure.
And some of the issues that can arise that you don't want to have arise or whatever. And maybe we can take them one at a time.
Sure.
Yeah?
Sounds good.
Good. So what would you like to address first?
Well, in general, the probate process in California occurs when someone passes away with or without a will. That's one of the biggest points that people don't quite understand. A will is great, but it just provides an instruction manual for the probate proceeding. So when folks pass away and they have more than $184,500 worth of assets that don't have somewhere to go. So they don't have a co-owner on an account, they don't have a co-title holder for real property, there's no beneficiary designated for an account, then whatever asset that is has to go through the probate process.
Aha.
Yeah.
184,000. Well, in Southern California,
It's nothing. Yeah.
It's nothing. There's probably nobody, very
Right.
few people that
Right.
have that issue. Or
Absolutely.
don't have enough to go through probate.
Right, right. So when we have assets that don't otherwise have a destination, we have to create that destination through the probate process. So if there's a will, then the beneficiaries identified in the will are the recipients of that probate estate. If there is no will, then it's what we call an intestate probate, which is no instruction manual. We just look at the probate code and figure out who the heir is. So that could be a spouse, it could be children, it could be far-flung relatives that never knew that the person existed. So
I've seen that.
Yes, can get very cinematic for sure. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's an easy way to bypass the probate,
Yes.
and that is a
trust.
trust. So those of you who don't have trusts, you might want to think about it. You must do trust.
Absolutely. Yes.
That would be one thing a probate attorney would definitely do just to avoid probate, because it costs money.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, probate is so expensive because there are not only the filing fees for the petition and subsequent documents filed, which are around $600 a pop, which can add up. There are statutory fees for attorney compensation and for the executor or administrator compensation. Right. And on about $1 million estate, roughly, my fee would be approximately $25,000 and the executor or administrator would be the same. So that's a lot right off the top.
$50,000, yeah.
Yeah.
That's 0.5%.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's high.
It's high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody wants to lose 50,000.
No, especially when we can plan for those things ahead of time with a trust and avoid all of that after the fact.
Well, I think we ought to for sure put your name and phone number below here because, and I know Steve well, because the best thing to do is really to circumvent or bypass or avoid it at all costs probate.
Exactly.
But so many people, even Prince, right?
Prince, Aretha Franklin. I mean, there's a long list of celebrities that have had no planning, which always blows me away.
If they have all the money in the world to plan, right?
Right, exactly.
Oh, it's really sad.
Yes.
And then you have like a percent, 1% or something, or half or whatever it is, automatically goes out the door. And when you have an estate like Prince,
right?
I mean,
yeah.
a lot of money.
Right, and it will go on for a long time because of all of his enduring assets.
And people are always after it, right?
Yes, of course, of course.
So beyond a will, you really, it would be good to have a trust.
Yes.
But let's say you don't have a trust. Now there's different types of probate. Some of them, you have to take them to a court and you get so many. So maybe you can explain the nuances of the different types of trusts. Of probates.
Sure. I mean, in California, if assets exceed that threshold, then they will go through probate. So we have really intestate probate and a will-based probate. So in either scenario, we're going to see court supervision of assets and of the administrator or the executor, and then ultimately distribution of those assets out to the beneficiaries. It could take quite some time, just given the pace of our courts here in California, it could be very slow, and every county's a little bit different as well. But again, you can really bypass that whole process just by doing some planning.
Better call Ariana. Okay, so as we know, sometimes the probate, like if we're selling real estate, because that's
right.
what we do, the probate has to be, the sale has to be approved by the judge, and
right.
other times it doesn't.
Right.
So maybe you can address
sure.
that.
So the fiduciary who's managing the estate, so it's either an executor if there's a will or an administrator if there is no will. When they petition to be appointed in that role, we always try to get them what's known as full IAEA, which is the Independent Estates Administration Act. And when an administrator or executor has full powers, as we say, they do not have to seek court confirmation of sale. When they have limited powers, then they do. So in that situation, unfortunately, a lot of times that really can cause hangups in the sale of real property, right at the very, down to the wire.
Right down to the very end, and they can upbid it by like 5% or whatever.
Someone
the
can
court
show up,
yes.
They can show up to the court proceeding that day with a cashier's check and outbid, your buyers that are sitting there, waiting.
Okay, wouldn't that stink?
Yes.
If you were a buyer?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you really, you have to prepare for the ultimate.
Right.
And I know people don't like to prepare for things like that, but it sure as heck makes a lot better on the heirs if you do.
Absolutely. It's one of the only inevitables that we all have.
Right.
And it's going to happen whether we've planned for it or not.
Exactly.
And leaving behind the wreckage of lack of planning is such a burden on families, on loved ones, on friends. It can really draw in a lot of people. And so to avoid that is such a gift to the next generation.
It's such a gift.
Yeah.
Plus there can be family infighting if you...
Oh. Yes.
I'm sure you've seen that.
Just a couple times.
The perfect family becomes...
It comes apart at the seams.
It does.
Absolutely.
It does. Well, do you have anything else that you think would be a salient issue from a probate or even trust standpoint that you think is important to address on this segment?
I think there's a misconception out there with the public and all different walks of life that you have to be super wealthy, have a lot of assets to do planning, and you just don't. In California, again, we have a $184,500 threshold. So if you own your studio apartment, you're going to be there,
yes.
Right? And so estate planning is not just for the wealthy, it's for everybody. And it doesn't always have to mean a trust. It could mean powers of attorney, it could mean just a will, whatever it is. But having a plan for your stuff, no matter what it is absolutely the key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
An executor, right?
Right. A trustee.
A trustee, everything. All of those above. And you can help with that as well.
Oh, for
right?
sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. That would probably be something you would spend a lot of time doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have maximums or minimums of my clients. I just the common person is my client. All the whatever that may be.
That comes from the Chapman upraising, right?
That's right. Yes.
Upbringing. That's great. Oh, you know, it's been such a pleasure, Ariana,
thank you.
having you on the show.
Thank you so
and
much.
we'll bring you back. Maybe we can do one segment only on trust,
Sure.
or, you know, something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll have lunch at Newport Beach Country Club.
Sounds good.
Anyway, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming in. I know all of your information is below. And we'll see you next time on this show.
Thank you.
Bye.